Hey guys, Fuad here from beattweaks.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to take an instrument and move it all the way back in the mix. Sometimes you want to add like little touches, you want to add arpeggiators or stabs or some kind of sound, but you don't really want them to be in your face. You want them to be kind of in the background, giving some atmosphere, giving some feeling to the song without really being too noticeable and not too upfront. You don't want it to be with the rest of the instruments, if you know what I mean. So a lot of times you hear in tracks, you hear synths and instruments that are, that sound like they're coming from all the way over there, if you know what I mean, like all the way from the back or all the way from the left. And they sound like they're in some kind of room or they're in some kind of space, and it sounds really good. It gives a lot of attitude to the track. It gives a lot of character to the track. So I'm going to show you a very easy way to achieve this using just a reverb plugin. All right, so let's take a listen to what I have here. And the instrument in question in this video is this arpeggiator here. So let's just take a listen to this loop and see what we have. We have a piano playing, kick, snare, hat, bass. Pads are muted at this point, but I can turn them on as well and just turn them all the way down. I don't really want them to distract us at this point. Actually, we'll keep them off because I really want to concentrate on this and drive this point home. So let's take a listen to what we have. All right, so it's this sound that we are listening for, and you probably notice that it sticks out in a way that doesn't sound too good. So we want to take care of that. So this is the sound we are going to process. All right, so on its own, it sounds nothing special. But once you put it with everything else, it does sound good. All right, so if we open up this track, we have a reverb plugin, and right now it's set to 0% dry wet, so it's not doing anything. And what we're going to do with this reverb is move this arpeggiator all the way back in the mix and make it sound like it's coming from some other space. Imagine if you are sitting in a room and you hear music coming from another room. It sounds very reverberated, and it's just got this distinct character to it. So basically what we're going to do with this reverb is we're going to make it really short and tight. So you can see here the size. The size is all the way down to 5. All right, so it's a really tight space. And also, if you take a look at the stereo, we also want to make that a little bit narrow. I don't want it to be too wide because we have a pad here and pianos that are already wide, so I don't want this conflicting with the other instruments. So we want to make this a little bit narrow. And you can tweak this as you're listening to the entire loop. So you can tweak it while you're listening to everything else at the same time. And then the pre-delay is set short, so I don't want the reverb to be separated from the actual sound. I want them to be kind of meshed as one. And I want to cut out a lot of the low end as well. So I don't want this to be too dark or it'll sound muffled, and that's not what we're going for. And again, you'll hear when I tweak this how it changes the character of the sound. Also, if you come here, I've also boosted the reflections. So the reflections are basically the reverb bouncing off walls, and it adds more echoes to the sound. So again, it reinforces this notion that you're sitting in a room and you're hearing sound coming from another space. So this helps emphasize that as well. We don't want the reverb to be too dense. And then in Ableton Live, we have this scale setting as well, which if you increase it, darkens the sound. If you decrease it, kind of lightens it up a bit. The shape here controls how fast the reflections decay. So, um, doing experiments on this, I find that if I decrease this, it kind of smooths out the reverb a little bit more, and increase it kind of darkens the sound a little, just a tiny bit. Just keeps those reflections under control. I'm going to keep the chorus and the spin the same. You can play around with these, but let's just increase the dry wet so you get the idea. All right, so I'm going to play the loop again, and I'm going to increase the dry wet. All right, so you can hear immediately that doing this moves the sound back in the mix and out of the way of everything else, and kind of makes it more into an atmospheric sound that just adds to the ambience rather than sitting there in the center of the mix and taking up too much space. Now, this on its own is really awesome, and what I did here was tweak the diffusion network, and this is just a fancy name for pretty much EQing the tail end of the reverb. So what I did was I took the high frequencies down. So I made them, I made the high frequencies not echo out too long. So that also kind of dulls the sound a little bit because it was too bright and too splashy. So doing this will control the tail of the reverb. So when you're tweaking these settings, you want to tweak them as you're listening, just like we were doing. To even emphasize this effect even more, you can pan the sound left and right, and that'll also, again, sound like it's coming from somewhere else. And then you can also tweak the decay time if you want to make it shorter, if you want to make it longer, give it more ambience, or make it tighter. That's also completely up to you. We can play around with that as well. I think maybe we can shorten this decay time a little bit more, and you'll hear what kind of effect that has on the sound. All right, so I think that sounds a lot better. Now what you can do is after the reverb, you can add a filter or an EQ. So if you want to shape the sound even further, for example, you want to darken it, maybe it's too bright, you want to muffle the sound a little bit, you can do that as well with an EQ. And you can put any other effects after the reverb, because in this case, the reverb is kind of acting as part of the sound design. It's not really an effect, it is you're shaping the way the sound actually sounds. So use this technique in your productions to send instruments way back in the mix, or make them sound like they're coming from some other space other than the space that you're sitting in. This is a really great way to do it.